Hey, so today I'm doing a comic book review. Mix things up, you know? Every once in a while I'll do something other than a movie, so today it's a comic book. Because one thing that I might not have ever mentioned on this channel before is that growing up and through my early teens and stuff, I always wanted to be a comic book artist. That was my big thing. That was where my big nerdum kind of thing started. And that's why I've always loved Spider-Man. That's always been my thing. And so, yeah, I'm doing a Spider-Man one today. This is a particular issue of the Spectacular Spider-Man. I'm kind of confused about what number issue because, I'll be honest, I'm a little bit of a comic book reader, but I kind of just pick up random issues here and there. I don't really follow complete series very often, other than a few select ones that I used to pick up. Literally, I used to go to the shop and get them each week, issue by issue. I used to get Deadpool ones, and I used to get a few Spider-Man ones. But other than that, every other thing I've read is just like random ones online and stuff. But this one is a particular one that I was collecting. Yeah, the Spectacular Spider-Man issue 22, called the Infernal Triangle. And this impresses the hell out of me. I remember really connecting with it back in the day, and I've just reread it because I wanted to talk about it because I remember how much I loved it. And yeah, no, so I've just reread it. It still holds up. This is a beautiful book, seriously. Like, it's fucking astounding in what it can kind of do, what it can depict in just like 20 pages or so. Like, this is, look at this shit, you know, it's your regular kind of comic size. I don't know, I'm just astounded by the amount of detail that can be put into something as kind of a small package as this. So the story of this comic is basically just Peter Parker, Spider-Man, going about his day and kind of just thinking more deeply about his kind of self-worth and where he is in his own life. This little small comic is very much about how he often sort of thinks about where he is in his life compared to others, which is a very relatable thing to me. And he talks about it in this comic very kind of wisely. I feel like it gives me some perspective about how things are always changing, about how you don't know where you're going to be later on, and about how kind of the world works in that way, that like people's lives kind of intersect with one another, and you know, you might come across somebody that you know later and they're a completely different person. In this case, it's this character on the front cover who used to be a supervillain. Well, no, not a supervillain. He used to just be like a regular villain. Small potatoes, as Spider-Man puts it, called Mindworm, who is a character I've never heard of. I don't know if that's from any other comics or if they just probably, I don't I'm not familiar with the character personally, but yeah, it's like a small-time kind of villain with like minimal superpowers kind of thing. Yeah, so it's about how Spider-Man later in life, years after fighting this villain, comes across him, and now, like, however many years later it's been, he's like just this homeless guy now. And it's like this tragic kind of story about how this guy was kind of put into the system. Like, once Spider-Man put him away, he put him in prison, and it's kind of how he dealt with this situation. Peter kind of wrestles with the idea of this being his fault where he's ended up, because like, if he didn't put him in jail, you know, maybe he would have been kind of better off. It kind of makes you start thinking about why he was doing the crimes to begin with, like why he needed the money and everything that he was going at. And it's kind of like, it's a really interesting take on a villain and what their motivations are, and then kind of why they're doing what they're doing, and what happens once the superhero takes them down. Because that's not the end of a villain's life. You know, if they go to prison, or if they're like a supervillain or whatever who comes out again and fights Spider-Man once again. But for these small-time crook type of villains, like, well, they obviously go on in some sort of way. And this comic kind of explores the idea of this guy just being a homeless man and being a very different, kind of more pathetic version of what he used to be. He also kind of wrestles with the idea that maybe this villain has had a mental illness, has always had a mental illness, and then that kind of makes Spider-Man blame himself as well, because it's like, well, maybe he should have done more. Maybe he shouldn't have just punched the guy and sent him to jail. You know, maybe he should have talked to him. Maybe he should have done, I don't know. But he talks to those in his lives who keep going on about him not being God, he can't control every aspect of everybody's lives, and he can't help and fix everybody. There's only so much that this dude with muscles and spider powers can do. He can't control the economy, he can't control one's mental illness, he can't control, you know, further issues like that. And yeah, so like, just this tiny 20-page comic like this, like, in that he accepts, or it's kind of him learning to maybe start accepting that yeah, he can't save everybody. He can't help everybody, which is a heavy theme throughout some of the Spider-Man movies as well, which is kind of the whole point of the character as well. Like, he's just this guy who is very powerful, is very confident, but he's always also a little bit in over his head. And, you know, he's just a kid, you know, learning about stuff as well as we are. Spider-Man is only human apart from his, you know, crazy power stuff that happens as well. Like, there's these lines early on where he talks about how everybody evolves, whether that's your first 100 days of work and how that kind of evolves from your first day to your kind of more confident 100th day. He talks about like how that can be compared to your days in high school, if that's where you are in life, or, you know, whatever it is. And then he talks about how, and one day you can just turn into a freaking spider, which, you know, it kind of grounds him to be into this relatable field, thinking about it through the lens of a job or school or whatever. But, you know, it's more spectacular in that sense about him being Spider-Man. And it's just kind of like, I don't know, I appreciate the smallness of this comic. Street level people. It's about real kind of life. And yeah, I just think, I think it's beautiful, to be honest. I really like this little small comic quite a lot. And yeah, I think the art is really awesome as well. I've always loved the comic book style art. That's what I was always into throughout my teens. Always wanted to do that until later in my teens when I wanted to be a tattoo artist. I was big on drawing when I was younger. Then I got into this passion instead, and now I make videos, but I don't draw that much nowadays. But I probably should. I want to draw a little bit more. That's so irrelevant from this video though, so don't even worry about it. But if you can find this online, which I'm 100% sure you probably can, 100% sure you probably can, is what I just said. But yeah, no, it's good. It doesn't take very long. I've been talking about it longer than it took me to even read it. But yeah, it's pretty impressive, with that being said, for how short it is, for how much it says. That's all. Okay. Just by the way, I'm in a ridiculous situation at the moment because it was my birthday recently and my wife blew up 200 balloons, since we can't actually like go out and leave and go to the movies and stuff, which is the thing that I always do for my birthday, exclusively, all the time. I don't think I've ever not gone to the movies on my birthday. Very sad times. But the point is, she blew up all these balloons. So I'm just like surrounded by balloons at the moment, and I had to like move them all and pile them all over there instead of them being all where I'm standing. Because, yeah, I don't know. Anyway, that's all. Goodbye.